and all you see is just partial bicep and a tattoo, and matching the one he has. I'm familiar with the subject. Been inside this residence, so he just starts shooting from behind the shower curtain. Never see a gun before he starts shooting, so I get hit 4 times. The other officer gets hit once.
Back viewers, watchers, listeners, I'm your host Tyler Owen. We got a jam-packed full agenda today on the Blue Grit podcast. Appreciate you guys tuning in. First and foremost, if you've not registered already for the Texas FOP TMPA Joint Conference July 24th through the 26th, jump on tmpa.org and get those registrations done. It's a great networking opportunity for you and your family to come attend one of the biggest law enforcement conferences in the state. It's really phenomenal. So, again, tmpa.org. Go ahead and get your registration updated and register for conference July 24th to the 26th there at the Dallas Hyatt Regency in downtown Dallas. It's going to be a good time. Speaking of FOP, or Texas FOP, to my left, we've got Texas FOP Chaplain and 112 Vice President Bryan Flatt. And to my right, the man, the myth, the legend, John Wilkerson of the legislative team, both of these guys, who is the 112 president. We're going to talk a little legislative things going on today. He's got a guest that he wanted to bring on, Jaclyn Skinner from Wood County, that kind of highlights something that you've been working really hard on the last several sessions, and so it deals with the workers' comp. But J-Dub, Bryan, the hell are you guys up to? What's going on?
Good morning.
Good morning. I'm usually I feel like I'm a little more energized than you are, Bryan. Is it because we're not in the Capitol hallways?
I haven't completed the first cup of coffee yet.
Yeah, we're not letting him get started on a second one either.
Yeah. So what's going on with session right now? Ahead of the session, some interesting things are kind of playing out. Just wrapped up the runoff elections last night.
Yep.
Congratulations to Mays Middleton. I think he's going to be phenomenal. Texas AG ahead of, I guess he's the AG elect, or will be. Is that correct?
Well, no, because you still have the general.
Oh, that's right. November. That's right. That's right. So he is the Republican nominee.
Correct.
For
you have Nathan Johnson out of Dallas. That's the Democratic nominee.
Any back history on the Democratic nominee?
No. Law enforcement, we tend to get stuck on this Republican versus Democrat thing.
I know.
And, one of the things that's really hard to get through a member's brain is if you go back and look at the history of things, we got all of our protections, namely from the Democrats, and we got all of our tough on crime laws from the Republicans.
That's pretty.
And so, yeah, and then what we've seen in the past couple of years, I'm not going to call it a flip on that, but you're starting to see even some of the Republicans supporting bills that are a little bit weaker on crime.
Right.
And then you're also starting to see some Republicans that are a little bit more in tune with job protections.
Okay.
So, keeping that dividing line and just getting on the hot button topics that we all love to get on, single issue politics, just please stop doing that.
Well, but case in point, though, I mean, like, you guys have many offices, and of those offices, I'm sure they're split 50-50, 60-40, Republican, Democrat. Listen, we don't care what party you're a part of. If you're going to help us, move forward with the mission of making law enforcement safer, better, and collectively all whole, we don't have a party affiliation, right? We're about law enforcement. And so that's kind of the key point. Took me moving out here and being a part of you guys to kind of realize that, but you're right. I think to your point, you think Democrat, you think automatically anti-law enforcement. You think, not pro-law enforcement. And that's completely not true. Right. I mean, look at Whitmire there in Houston.
Yep.
Phenomenal track record of supporting law enforcement. Huge friend of law enforcement. Huge friend of TMPA, quite honestly. And look at what he's doing for Houston. And so he's completely turned that city around, the culture, the morale of Houston Police Department. And it goes back to kudos to John Whitmire.
Yeah, he's always been a friend of TMPA, and he's always been a friend of law enforcement. I forget who rolled out some propaganda about HPOU dropping their endorsement. That was a complete fake story. I don't know where it came from, but I called Ray and I'm like, man, what's going on here? And Ray says, man, that's a fake story. We still fully support John Whitmire.
Yeah, so. Yeah, I can't imagine why they wouldn't. And speaking of Ray Hunt, again, these guys, Bryan and JW, for those that don't know or have not lived under a rock, they've been on the podcast several times. They are legislative liaisons, huge instrumental role. They really do work behind the scenes, and they're the unsung heroes of carrying out the mission of TMPA. Every single off season of the session, these guys work with other legislative stakeholders, for example, HPOU, DPA, to kind of figure out, what's the trajectory? What are we looking at for the next session as far as the legalities are concerned in the upcoming session for bills and so forth, and maintaining those relationships in Austin at the Capitol. It's really imperative to our mission. And so, again, The unsung heroes of TMPA that work kind of behind the scenes. These two guys are busting their butts, walking the hallways of the Capitol and maintaining those relationships during the off season. But we're in off season right now, and just because the elections just came up doesn't mean that these guys are sitting on a beach somewhere drinking a pina colada. They're full fledged ahead, and they're working hard. I'm getting some eye stares. I guess Bryan did just get back from vacation a couple weeks ago. No. Okay.
You're not.
All right.
I was 2 weeks on the road working.
You were, yeah, that's right. Well, and you're also an instructor, former training coordinator for TMPA, and so you like to, or you fill in when you can, whenever those other instructor classes don't have instructors to do that.
Right. And I was in D.C. for Police Week.
That's right.
With peer support, with support services, and then I was home for like 14 hours back on the road.
We're traveling.
To go teach.
I'm not sure if Michelle doesn't pay our executive staff to keep you away from home.
She does. I mean, there was a time she's like, hey, when are you going to be home for a while? And I'd be home for a while. And then she'd be like, when are you leaving again?
Yeah, no kidding.
I can leave now.
Well, I know Michelle's going to be tuning into this episode. Huge congratulations to her and her new upcoming role with Georgetown Police Department. Super proud of her. Again, TMPA is a family. And so when our spouses that, quite honestly, bust their ass and help us complete the mission, when they're able to be successful professionally, we're going to be there and be their biggest cheerleader. So again, congratulations, Michelle Flatt, on being the the community services coordinator.
Victim services.
Okay, victim services coordinator for Georgetown. That takes a lot of compassion.
And she's a TMPA member.
There you go. Finally. Well, hey, we got an interesting story out of Wood County. Jaclyn Skinner, JW brought this forward and said, hey, we got to get her on the podcast and kind of explain the challenging situation that she was faced with. But that's not the beginning of the story. I think that is the beginning. There's more of a workers' comp issue that we're trying to work through. And man, thank you so much, Jaclyn, for driving down. I'm me being an East Texas boy. I know how far it is, and taking time out of your busy schedule, we greatly appreciate it. And to let others know, kind of this is the ugly fact of getting injured on the job while serving your community. So, Jaclyn Skinner, welcome to Blue Grit.
Thank y'all for having me.
Let's start off by talking about kind of where you started off in law enforcement, where you grew up, and then what made you want to serve. We'll start there, and then we'll kind of transcend into how you began working for Wood County.
Sure. I actually was born in Wood County. My dad was Air Force, so we moved around a little bit. And I started to there in that area, you have to be sponsored. So I applied for the jail or dispatch for Wood County, and I got a job in dispatch for Wood County and have been there since 2016. So I worked in dispatch until I was able to go to the police academy.
We always talk about the fundamentals of learning this profession and then transitioning over. I think it's imperative we talked about working in the jail or working in dispatch and having a full understanding prior, to becoming a cop. But some of our members out there that work in, no offense, Plano, no offense, Austin, or the surrounding Central Texas areas, when you say sponsored, they don't understand. You have to seek a sheriff or a police chief that's willing to kind of take a bet on you. They're not paying you while you're going to this. You have to pay for the academy yourself, or it could be grant funded with an EDCOG grant. That may have happened to you there in East Texas, but you have to be signed off. And so it's kind of a pre-checklist of, we're willing to take a risk on this person and put them through on grant funds. And so you're not being paid, but the academy's paid for. So that's kind of an extra step. I think it speaks volumes of the continued service of the servant's heart of trying to get into law enforcement that you did by doing the route that you went.
They partially funded it. I think we had to pay a small portion of it, but I worked during the day and then went to night academy. So it was I never thought I was going to get done.
9 months of hell.
Yes.
I had to go through a full-time 4.5 months. There's no way I was able to get a 9 months in. I wouldn't have been able to retain all that information over that period of time. So anyway, so you were dispatch, went to the academy. You were sponsored by Wood County.
Yes.
Was the same sheriff?
This is my third sheriff.
Okay.
So this is our current sheriff. He just started is in the middle of his second term. He just ran unopposed, which is awesome for us. But at the time, I got hired, and when I started, it was the day before he got beat. So I was faced with
wow.
You have to reapply, and so
you don't know what's going to entail during this election process. And for those that don't know where Wood County's at, we're talking about Mineola, which is a town just northwest of Tyler. right there on the Highway 80 corridor, just north of I-20 is kind of where Wood County sits. It's just beginning of the Piney Wood region of Texas. It's beautiful out there. But
You
anyway,
almost can't get to it from here, right?
yeah. It's it's another. Of course, I was a little bit more east than that. But it's a beautiful part of Texas, home of some really, really, really good people. Still, it's a rural setting. So to kind of paint the picture of what these deputies and what she went through, what kind of area she patrolled. So you get out of the academy, you're working patrol, and kind of lay us out on the first couple of years of being a deputy.
I came out and was ready to hit the street. I had a warrant list my first day while we went and took the test. I passed the test. Went and got all my stuff. I didn't even know how to put my duty belt together. Went to the sheriff's office, swore in, and said, "Hey, Lieutenant, I have a warrant list. Can we go arrest somebody?" And so we, I was lucky to have some support, and we have been a really proactive agency. So
yeah,
we continued with that. I currently a patrol sergeant at night, and that's been my favorite role so far.
Yeah, being a supplemental supervisor there on patrols, it's an experience. It's an experience. So let's dive off into the night that what the situation took place. Kind of give us how the call unfolded, how you responded, and then how the other units were involved.
Sure. So February 14th of this year, we got a warrant list together per usual, and we went and served a warrant. We weren't able to locate this subject, so we went and tried to serve another one. We had information that the subject was going to be home. We showed up. This property's full of junk everywhere. There's a main dwelling and then several RVs on the property. I see somebody moving around in one of the RVs, so we go and make contact. It's somebody that I'm familiar with, a female. We have a good rapport with her. I ask her about the subject, and she denies him being there. And I didn't mean to cough on you. She denies him being there, but she's evasive. She's self-soothing. It's just everything in a roadside interview, you would search the car, right?
Right.
So I bring her away from the camper that she was in and just kind of talk to her about something else. She's still nervous. She's still looking at the house. I'm like, no, he's in there. He's got to be in there. I ask her about the cameras on the house. I said, who has access to these? She says, just me. We go on, and I said, okay, well, just so that we can say that we did, do you mind if we just check the house? We had more than enough to go in the house, but
right.
She lives there too, and so she just looks distraught, but she gives consent. And we go in and clear the house, get through living room, kitchen, laundry area, go down the hallway, and the house is just full of junk. And the hallway, it's a small hallway with stuff piled up on the left side where we have an opening coming up on the right, and it's a bathroom. And she says, you can open it. He's not here. You can open that door. And so there's not room for, I've got somebody clearing the room with me, or the house with me. The other units were getting their vehicles to bring him up. There wasn't room for him to roll the door, so I breached my own door, let it breathe, and the shower curtain was partially open, and all you see is just partial bicep and a tattoo, and matching the one he has. I'm familiar with the subject. Been inside this residence probably half a dozen to a dozen times over the last 7 years. And I'd start ordering him out. He doesn't comply. I never see his face. He doesn't. So he just starts shooting from behind the shower curtain. Never see a gun before he starts shooting. So I get hit 4 times. The other officer gets hit once. the first shot goes in my right arm, and then I get hit twice in the neck, once in the hip. So one of the shots, that one knocks the gun out of my hand, and I'm not able to get back to my weapon. So I'm trying to get Hughes out, and then I go back down the hallway with my taser. Wouldn't advise that after watching that in a video, but we get out of the house. They ended up having to get him out of the window, the Hughes.
Hughes is the deputy?
He's a trooper.
Trooper? Okay.
So they have to exfil him through a bedroom window, and the subject keeps shooting throughout. It leads to like a 7-hour standoff. So multiple agencies, DPS, SWAT, Henderson County came out. They knocked a huge hole in the wall. He continued shooting. They tried gas. They tried everything, negotiations, but ultimately he was shot and pronounced dead at the hospital. But after Hughes and I were exfilled, we were treated on scene and taken by personal vehicle to different hospitals in our county, and not personal, but patrol vehicles.
Yeah.
And then stabilized and transported to a bigger town near us.
Was that a split-second decision to transport y'all by vehicle? Because we've oftentimes on this podcast, we've had one other female also that was shot in the face, and had they not made the decision, some officers are hesitant about that, right? They're hesitant about, oh my God, we're not an ambulance service. We can't provide transport, and there are some departments that have policies maybe that are even against that. Is it your opinion or maybe your feeling that night was a split-second decision that ultimately may have even not cost you your life waiting on an ambulance?
For sure. So an ambulance won't go in until the scene's secure.
Right.
And so they were to meet us at an intersection, which was probably less than a quarter mile from the residence, and they weren't there. And so the deputy took me, and our shift is, there's typically at a agency like that, your shifts are close, and our shift is close. And I'm really proud of my guys. They know if one of us, we talk about it, we train for it, we know if one of us is in it that we're taking you. It doesn't matter what policy says.
Yeah, that's right. Well, kudos to you for doing that. So they transport you most likely to Tyler?
They first to Winsboro.
Okay.
And then he tourniquets my arm on scene. I told him I think I've got one here, and I don't tell him about the neck because at that point I don't think that I'm going to make it. And I'm in and out of consciousness all the way to the hospital, and I know that they're going to have to go back in the fight. So I don't want them dealing with that, because these are people that we have at our family events. These are, yes, we're brothers in blue, but we're family.
Yeah.
So, get to the hospital, and he has to go back into the fight, and they stabilize me and bring me to Tyler, and kind of don't know a whole lot until the next morning. They go bring me into surgery. My right arm, which the bullet traveled up right at my elbow all the way to my bicep, ripped the bicep. It's in my shoulder blade still. So they put some pins and screws, and we're still hoping that the bone will grow back. We're just waiting to see.
So during that process, you woke up. Obviously, you're now aware fully of kind of the recovery process, or what all took place the night before. You're met by your TMPA attorney, and y'all kind of get a game plan for that. Let's kind of fast forward just a little bit, a couple months. Obviously, this is going to be a long recovery. You got shot in the hip, shot in the arm, two gunshot wounds to the neck, and and to this day, you've still got some visible disabilities, struggle walking and things of that nature. I think police officers, you think, shit, if I get hurt, they're going to take care of me. I'm serving my community. Hats off to the VA, but there's some problems there too. But you think wounded soldier, they're kind of set after that. They're going to be taken care of. That's not the case with law enforcement. And I think this is something that JW and Bryan have been fighting a good fight, and along with Representative Jared Patterson, of kind of identifying, man, these were some problems. I mean, you're shot. You've been shot 4 times, serving your community, serving a warrant. Why isn't workers' comp helping? So kind of navigate around what your initial thought was. JW, you can chime in. You're also in, and you've been involved with this process during her struggles. But at what point did you kind of realize, man, something's not right? Was it the county HR, or was it comp, or just kind of explain the process?
Well, I was sent home without wound care, and I was starting to, order some supplies, and I was like, well, this doesn't seem like I should have to, order all of this, supply all of this. And so I started asking, like, well, we need an order for these there was only one type of bandage that would either stay on, or I wouldn't bleed through, or it would rip skin off of me. And so they asked for they told me I had to get an order for the bandage. And so meanwhile, I'm waiting weeks, and because I can't buy it, I would have ordered it myself, but I can't. I guess you have to have an order anyway. So they wouldn't order, still to this day, wouldn't order trauma shears or for me to cut. And I'm like, this doesn't seem right. What does this benefit me?
Yeah.
And then I started going back to the ortho, but he's only wanting to look at this one injury that he did surgery on, but I have all these other injuries and a lot of pain and ringing in my ears, and I can't sleep, and when I do try to sleep, all I can think about is the shooting.
Yeah.
So everything that I was needed approval, and everything needed a utilization review, and that could take 5 to 2 weeks, and I'm like, well, this is going to affect how I heal.
During some of the legislative sessions that these guys have testified on, some of the state reps, we often kind of think about, you had insurance to the county, I'm assuming.
Yes.
And I know that they can't really cross-reference because it's workers' comp. Was that even discussed of like, hey, doctor, I've got personal insurance too. Like whatever workers' comp doesn't cover, can I at least kick in my health insurance that's covered through the county? I mean, to get at least the adequate care that you need.
No, and that's one of the many problems that you have with the comp statutes right now is, I'll give you a great example, two great examples. When I was injured in 2009 fighting with a guy, again, I'd never been through the comp system before. I tell everybody when it comes to the comp, the veteran administration clinics are not very pleasant to go to, and the only thing worse than them is Texas workers' comp. So I got hurt. Really, really quick story. As I'm coming down, I don't want to cheese grate this guy's face on the pavement, so I stick out my arm. And then so now I've got my weight, his weight, and the weight of a guy named Frank Hawbecker out of Gillespie County that's coming down on top of us. And when I stuck my arm out, I heard my shoulder pop, and I immediately lost use of it and got in my patrol car, drove to the ER. They did an X-ray on it, and they said, follow up with your primary care physician. Okay. So I followed up with my primary care, set the appointment, walked in the next day. As soon as I said I was hurt at work, they turned me around. They said, we don't take workers' comp cases. I said, well, I've got insurance. And they said, no, you can't do it that way. So the minute you say workers' comp, you're done when it comes to the medical offices, unless they take comp cases, and unless they take comp cases from the carrier that you have. So you can't intermingle the two. Just to refresh everybody's memory, 88th regular session, we worked on House Bill 790 that Representative Patterson championed for us. And just to kind of reiterate what that bill does is that bill says if comp denies your claim, great. Take your insurance, do fundraisers, whatever you have to do. go get healed, come back to work, and then go through the appeals process. And if you win, carrier has to reimburse all of your money. They already have to reimburse private medical. So if for some reason a part of it was accidentally captured on say Blue Cross Blue Shield plan, Blue Cross and Blue Shield, they can already go back and get some of that funding back.
Yep.
Problem with it is the rate of workers' comp is less than Medicare. So the amount of money that they'd have to pay their attorneys to send those notices and everything, most hospitals or most insurance carriers like, it's not even worth it.
Right.
So, but anyways, that bill passed unanimously out of the House of Representatives, unanimously. 148 voted for that. There was one present not voting, likely the Speaker of the House, and there was one absent. Gets over to the Senate, and it dies a horrible death over in the Senate side. So we've been working, continuing to work. Great example, last session, one of the bills that was passed, I forget the bill number on it, but what that bill does is it on these contested case hearings, when the comp denies a claim, and now you go through your BR benefit review conference with TDI. After you get through that, which typically doesn't resolve anything, then now you got to wait 3 or 4 months to get before a SOA hearing. And so one of the things that we championed for last session and got it passed was now let's take Jaclyn for example. If Jaclyn is in a contested case hearing, and it's easier for Jaclyn to get on, say, Zoom and attend that hearing via Zoom, she can do that. We wanted to make sure that right, whoever calls that, is the injured employee. The way it's worded in the law is that it has to be mutually agreed upon, and if it's not, and if the TDI finds good cause, then now they can order it either in person or on video conference.
But the most irritating thing is that just like Jaclyn and Bryan, chime in if you want to, 99% of the cases that you guys have testified, to include Jaclyn, they just want to get back to work. Right. This isn't like they're trying to get the county over, they're trying to get workers' comped over, trying to get days off and go hang out in Puerto Rico. These are people that legitimately want to go back and serve their communities, and yet they hit roadblock after roadblock of just trying to do the right thing. And so that's why this legislation is so important, is like, it's common sense. I mean, there's some bills out there that you listen to and you look at the language and you're like, how is this not going to pass? And then it's frustrating because when it dies in the Senate, and it's all behind politics and other organizations out there that are trying to counteract this legislation being done because it counterproduces to what their funding is going to be.
Yep. Yeah, and I'm just going to, well, maybe I shouldn't call them out, but one of the insurance carriers last session was dumb enough to hand me a document. And I can't remember the exact numbers. I have to find that document again. But it breaks down all of their non-first responder claims and then their first responder claims. The number of claims presented were about the same, as a little bit higher in public safety. I want to say there was something like 34,000 non-first responders and then 35,000 or something that were first responders. And then it showed how many of those claims were accepted and then how many of them were denied. What it doesn't say is how many of these were accepted because a judge told you had to accept them. And then how many of these are you claiming that you accepted when you claimed that the injury was a compensable injury, fancy term of saying, hey, you got hurt at work. But then they turned around and they denied the extent of injury, saying, okay, yeah, that, getting shot didn't cause, your arthritis in your hip, kind of stupidity, right? So that's what they do. So then how many of those are saying, oh yeah, we accepted the claim for compensability, but we never accepted the extent of injury. And so, but what I found was interesting with that report is the number of denials, even though the number of claims were about the same, the number of denials for first responders were 3 to 1.
Jesus.
So, it's like, okay, you're denying 3 to 1 claims on first responders that are out here keeping our community safe. How is this not, something that the Senate, picked up and paid attention to? But maybe this session we get some movement.
Would it not be safe to say too? You've got the VA stuff, and you've got national, and you were in the military. Maybe you can answer this. I don't know. Would it not be safe to mirror something that the military offers for like National Guardsmen? I mean, if they get hurt, they're pretty much taking care. They don't have to go through this bullshit. I guess is my point.
That depends on who activated them, because another Patterson bill that it got passed was if you get injured active duty, or if you're a guardsman and you go active duty, if you're called to active duty on orders of the President of the United States,
Then it's active.
then you're covered.
Okay.
If not, if you're called by your governor, then it falls under that state's, whatever that
Workers'
state's.
comp.
Yeah. So
So we're in the same boat.
yeah,
That makes sense. Yeah.
Yep. And so, and so that's kind of that in a nutshell. We've got some other things that we're working on, with comp this year. Obviously, we got to get issues like this fixed.
Yeah.
And we'll talk a little bit more with Jaclyn on some of the problems that she faced. But just some other things that we're going to be looking at is firefighters and EMTs, they have a presumption for certain cancers. Law enforcement's not in that. And I don't know why we were never included in that, but that's on our list.
Well, they were fire. I think they were fire related, correct? I mean, so back then they probably didn't have the 4-dimension aspect of thinking outside the box. Of we typically show up first. Wood County, I promise you, shows up well before the fire department. So maybe that wasn't thought of for that reason.
That's what I'm thinking, and it is what it is. But that hopefully will be something small that we can get.
Yeah.
Put in there, and then also adding jailers to that too.
Yeah.
Because you've got a lot of inmates that love to set jails on fire, and so they're breathing that same stupid stuff. So
well, yeah, and to Jaclyn's point, her being a dispatch. Let's talk about the mental wellness aspect of this, because obviously we talked about your physical injuries. Some of them visible to this day, even though it happened back in February. What we don't see, and what the general public doesn't see, and your family doesn't see visibly, is the mental turmoil that this kind of shooting, being trapped inside let's just call it like a meth house, is kind of what I'm envisioning, right, in Wood County. No offense.
Isn't that an East Texas mansion?
Yeah, it is, man. It's the mental aspect of that. I've been shot at. I've never been shot. And I can only imagine when you close your eyes at night, it messes with you. And I think, let's talk about the mental wellness within your agency, and let's talk about what the good they did, some improvements of other coworkers. We in law enforcement are trying to improve every day. Back to the VA's point, the military, I think, does a decent job on the mental wellness aspect. Law enforcement, we're getting there. We're not there yet by any means. And Bryan, you're a peer support chaplain for Texas FOP. Let's talk about the good, the bad, the ugly with the mental aspect that you went through, and then how you're doing today.
I think you said it. We're getting there. We're not there yet. It's probably not politically sound for me to say, but like I said earlier, our sheriff, he ran unopposed, which is wonderful, and he's starting to get things done that he wanted to get done.
Right.
But he can't magically make our staff double like we need.
Yep.
Like so many around. I mean, we all need that, but we're running ragged. And yes, I've got PTSD, and I have things that I need to work through that I'm not there yet.
Yeah.
And
you may not ever be there, and that's okay, right? It's how you deal with it and how you get through the day.
But the other guys that were there, they're back at work, and all I want to do is get back to my team.
Yeah.
They're capable. It has nothing to do with their capability as officers, as men, but they were my guys. And so they're still trying to fight that mental health battle because we don't have other officers to relieve them.
Yeah.
So, fortunately, our sheriff and our chief deputy, so our chief came from, he worked for Wood County years ago, and he worked for Greenville PD, and we still have a really good relationship with them. We work with their SWAT a lot. They were SWATted that night, and their mental health team comes and helps us when we lost our Pollard
last year.
Yeah. They came over, they rode with us, so we didn't have to ride by ourselves. So they're there for us. Their mental health, their chief texts me, hey, what do you need? He has a place in Wood County, actually. And so we do have resources, and we do have programs that they're offering. So really grateful that one, that I was able to be shot in the United States of America and not overseas, and that it was in Wood County and not in these liberal cities.
Yeah.
So, but we are not there yet. And there are guys at work right now that are still fighting mental health battles from the incident, whether it be that, I won't talk about their battles, and we don't have anybody to work for them so they can handle it.
Yeah, and I think what Jaclyn, the point you're trying to make is that some agencies across Texas, bigger agencies such as in major metropolitan areas, have the luxury sometimes of saying, hey, we've got people we can pull from CID, from special events, from community outreach. We've got people that can fill those boots on the ground for patrol. And the patrol, and I'll say this, I said it when I was a captain at Harrison County, patrol was the backbone of any agency. The struggle that what you're talking about is that sometimes administrations struggle with the fact that you've got these boots on the ground that you have to fill, and they're willing to help out, but you can't be everywhere at one time. Bryan, you've seen this across the state, but you've also seen it across the country. When rural agencies like this, what's the biggest things that you feel like they could improve on when it comes to peer support? So oftentimes we see at major metropolitan areas or larger agencies that they'll give the officer some time, some time off. But in these rural settings, just where Jaclyn works at, they don't have that luxury. They don't have the luxury of kind of being able to take off a week or two to kind of get right mentally. So they're kind of forced back into the work aspect. And some people, that's great because it gets them back into the routine of being a cop again and working with their teammates. But sometimes it can be also negative.
Yeah. So in particular with our smaller agencies, like Jaclyn was talking about, they don't have enough manpower to come in and say, hey, we need, whether it's 1, 2, 5, however many officers and deputies, go get some assistance. And now we can send our detectives in, our other specialized units, depending on how big that agency is. Not everybody has that luxury to do that. If you have that good working relationship with a neighboring agency that has the manpower to be able to come and help, a state resource like Texas DPS, whoever, to be able to come in and go, hey, can y'all come in and help? We need to have this. Well, part of that is the leadership, right? Can they make the decision? Is there a guideline that they can go by? And I'll talk a little bit about something else that we're working on in the mental health world for law enforcement in a bit. Is there a plan in place, right? We can't plan for everything, right? Just like we can't train for everything. But if we have those resources available, if that leader, whether it's chief, sheriff, constable, whoever it is, if you have somebody that truly cares about their people, say, look, I can see that they're struggling, they need some help. I'm going to do everything I can to try to get them, whether it's 1 day off, a week off, whatever it is, to get them the assistance that they need to be able to come back to work where we can go do our job.
Right.
On the workers' comp side of that is when officers get hurt, they just want to come back to work. They've already filled X number of years. They're already looking for that day that they can say, okay, today's the day that I'm now eligible, that I can walk away for any reason whatsoever. Well, if they knew that going in, that everything is not going to work in their favor should something happen,
right,
well, why get into the job, right? We'll talk about that on why we're going to be testifying tomorrow in a hearing of the mental health side, the peer support side of things, of even if we can just go and say, not everybody has the resources, even if that, I don't know, 1,000+ times that I've been told, once an officer came back to work and it was like, nobody checked on me. Nobody would even talk to me. Well, a lot of that has to do with, because they don't know what to say.
That's right.
They don't. Yeah. They care. Most of them care. They just don't know what to say. Well, the old adage of, hey, are you okay? We're going to say what? We're okay.
Yeah.
Right? And it's, hey, how are you holding up? And like I tell people in the peer support side of things is, even if you just need somebody to sit there and be quiet with you, that's what we do.
Yeah.
And at some point in time, I've got the shoulder for you to lean on. We'll have the conversation. I have the resources available to get you professional assistance outside of that. But it's the struggle that these small agencies are going through. I mean, you can name it. I mean, you can list it alphabetically, everything from the mental health side of things to the salary, to the manpower, all that kind of good stuff. At the end of the day, it's, do we care about our officers? Mm-hmm. And that's what we have to try to convince state legislatures on is help give us all these protections. If y'all say that y'all care about the world of law enforcement, then give us everything that we possibly can. We know at some point in time there's a financial side of things, and there's a budget item that has to be put on it. But there's almost 2,800 law enforcement agencies in Texas, and not everybody's Austin, Dallas, San Antonio, all that kind of good stuff. They're Wood County.
Well, I think sometimes the multi-agency jurisdictional issue, y'all use Odyssey for your report writing?
No, we used to. We still utilize Odyssey. Right now it's CopSync. But
CopSync. Okay, prime example. But I think the point is let's say that DPS uses DPS's database. Y'all use Odyssey. Mineola uses CopSync. So you have all these reporting aspects, and I think that's which is the minutia, right? I mean, that's the small shit that needs to happen. When I think that's why sometimes you have the challenge of multi-agencies coming in and assisting because, okay, well, if Wood County is going to Rains County or going over to Gregg County to help out with a report, how is this going to work on the CID aspect, which is, I mean, it's minor. We'll figure that stuff out later on.
I think we were pretty good at Greenville's not all that close to us, and we wrote it on a document and handed it in.
For them to do that, that's phenomenal. That's awesome.
It really is. They rode with us, and I mean, it's a good team that we have with them. But I think the budget item, I mean, we have a sheriff that's fighting for us to try to get more officers, and we have a county judge and an auditor and a county commissioners that keep saying no. But
well, let us know how we can help. We will gladly take on the burden of picking a fight with politicians that aren't committed to public safety. We just won that battle in Polk County. Thank you, Judge Sidney Murphy. You're out of a job. Anyway, back to the story.
Yeah, and I just, for the administrators listening to this podcast, HB 33 was passed last session. That was the Uvalde Strong Act. And that bill requires every agency that is identified by the sheriff and DPS that may respond to an active shooting event at a school, they have to enter into an MOU. So you already have the legislative groundwork put down there for you. Don't forget to include the mental health aspects.
Good point.
Of making sure that's included in there.
Yeah,
so
great point. To your mental health aspect of your recovery process, how did that play into a role with the workers' comp, and what barricades or roadblocks kind of popped up during that mental health recovery?
So it was well over a month after I was home, and I was asking for some sort of help. And I had to get a referral from my orthopedic surgeon and the referral was wrote on there for PTSD after he talked to me for a little bit. And I had to wait for approval for that and you can't just go talk to somebody. They have to have a referral. And then they gave me 2 options in the state of Texas, and neither I was comfortable with. So I was given resources through TMPA, my sheriff's office.
Can you disclose on what those options were? You'd rather not?
I mean, if you'd like, but and then the other one's it's a private practice. But,
okay.
So, Gio, I think this is a good opportunity to really talk about how I came to know Jaclyn.
Okay.
It's freaking. What was that? Was it March when I made contact with Jaclyn? And the reason I made contact with Jaclyn was, and I don't even know if Jaclyn knows about this, but so let's go back in a little bit of TMPA history here. Mitch Slaymaker was a deputy executive director here.
Mm-hmm. And past president.
Yep, and past president. And so I guess Mitch lives next to Jaclyn's father.
Okay.
So I guess Jaclyn was talking to her father about problems with workers' comp and that kind of stuff. Well, Mitch Slaymaker's like, well, I know a guy that knows.
Yeah.
So I get a phone call. And he's like, hey, can you just reach out to her and see if she needs any help on anything? And so I reached out to her, had a conversation with her, and she was not making a whole lot of sense. But she kept saying that she's not able to sleep. And you know as well as I do, when you get sleep deprived, and especially if you're going through all this stuff. And so, she was communicating to me that she had asked for a specialty bed that she could get in and out of easier. Obviously, when you got bullet holes in your hip and shoulders, and it took I think you told me it took him 4 weeks to screw that up.
Yes, they denied it.
Yeah. So within about a day, and big shout out to our partner organizations on this. HPOU, Harris County Deputies Organization. What's that? Dallas ATO.
Yeah, Dallas ATO,
and the First Responders Association of Texas. Within a day, we were able to order a $5,000 bed and get it dropped off at her house in about a week after that. It's a specialty bed that relieves pressure points on the shoulder and on the hips, and zero gravity and all the bells and whistles on. So that's how I came into contact with Jaclyn, and just being able to identify, hey, let's break this down to ground level. She's not making much sense because she can't sleep. So let's try to address that problem real quick.
Yeah.
Get that. And I've been staying in contact with her about, some various things with workers' comp. She's asked me some questions about, hey, they're dragging their feet on this. And sadly, I wish I could tell Jaclyn when she reaches out to me, I wish I could tell her, well, hey, this is how we fix this immediately. But there is no immediate fix with this broken bureaucratic system that they have called the Texas Workers' Comp system. So, and then on another conversation I had with her, just checking up on her, we addressed the mental health stuff, and me knowing how comp sucks, and especially how much it sucks with mental aspect of it. I gave her Kathy Bustos' number and asked her to reach out to Kathy Bustos from that peer support couple. And, and I don't know if she's reached out. I don't want to get into that conversation piece with her because I think some of those things need to stay between.
Yeah, for sure. But it's resources that she may not have had before in the networking aspect. That we're happy and honored to facilitate those, right? And I'm sure a lot of other statewide organizations have the connections we do. But I think it's the mission. I think, kudos to you, JW, for kind of going the extra mile, and Mitch Slaymaker for reaching out and identifying, and kudos to your dad. He's obviously a proud father of a young, independent woman that's struggling through something that was going on right then, and chose to reach out to people that he thought could help, and they came through. So I think that's the honor aspect of it. Me being a dad of a daughter, man, it takes a lot to ask for help, and especially I can already tell that you're really, really, really independent, and you probably don't like to ask for help when it's needed. So, but again, TMPA is kind of a huge family, and that whole situation right there just kind of confirms it all.
And that Jaclyn really illustrates just what TMPA is about, right? If look at TMPA, let's just if we're going to be throwing out like a recruitment speech, right? We offer the insurance part of it, right? So the night of the shooting, we sent out a lawyer to her shooting scene, and that lawyer showed up to her hotel. But then look at what else we do. We do charities.
Yeah.
Well, part of TMPA charities, when people donate that money into charities, then that's how we can take some of that money and buy that specialty bed for our member who's trying to recover, right?
Yep.
And then you have the legislative side of it. And so, now Jaclyn's going to be able to help us out. And it's sad that she has to, but now she's going to be able to help us out, and she's going to be able to see on this side of it as well. So Jaclyn, you're about to see what everything TMPA is about, because you're getting all of our services. And I want you to know that, we're going to continue providing you every service that we can. And we get real passionate here about the things that we get involved in. And we're really looking forward to working with you, alongside you, this next legislative session, to try to get your story before these policymakers, so that way they can pull their head out of whatever sand it's in when it comes to the comp stuff and help find meaningful resolution.
Had you ever experienced or heard of a workers' comp disaster until you have lived through this nightmare right now, or did you even think it was possible?
Not to this extent. Approximately a year prior, I was in a fight and had a concussion, and I just gave up. I was like, well, I'll fix it myself.
Yeah, because it wasn't life-altering, right?
Yeah.
When it's life-altering, we just talked about this a while ago.
I just got enough to get back to work. And I was like, I'll just do this. This is not worth it. It was a pain. I didn't deal with it.
Yeah.
Now I have to deal with it, or else, I've been, and I do remember the conversation he's talking about. I I hadn't slept in
you were loopy.
weeks. Yeah. And I wasn't even on pain meds because I couldn't even get those. They wouldn't get my medicines right. But I was like, I was just telling them, oh yeah, they denied CTs, or they're waiting for approval for this. I can't get approval for PT. I can't get approval for just basic things I need. And since then, I've gotten a denial for a bone stimulator. I need to grow a bone back in my arm so I can shoot again. I needed a hand specialist so I can get some movement back. But I remember that conversation. I was like, sorry, I promise I can speak. I'm so tired. Yeah. And whenever he called back and said that, hey, we're able to get you this bed, it just, because at home I couldn't dress myself. I couldn't get in and out of the shower, the bathroom. I can't get in and out of the bed. So, and workers' comp had denied the hospital bed and denied the specialty bed. And then, they took about, I think it was 4 weeks to say that they needed an appeal. And anyway, so that was just to be able to sleep and get in and out of the bed without having to call somebody
that's crazy.
And if, in Texas, we have like 82,000 peace officers, about 25,000 jailers, corrections officers.
Yeah.
If basically 100,000 people in Texas decided one day, you know what, if this is the way it's going to be, if I get hurt, I'm just going to walk away now and just go find something else to do. What's Texas going to do?
Yeah.
Right? If 100,000 truly knew what this process, how it's failing so many people, why stay in it?
That's right.
Why stay in it?
That's true. And let's piggyback off that, because some don't know this. A part of our legal plan, we want to assist people that are on the edge or on the fence of maybe, being terminated. And the sad part is, why don't you touch on the fact that a lengthy workers' comp battle you could be subject to termination. There's not a whole lot of legalities at TMPA. We're going to fight for you, but there's not a whole lot there. Discuss that real quick, because people don't know.
Yeah, so a couple things. If you're a civil service agency, you have up to a year. Now, they love to play on the words that, the time that you have is commensurate with the injury. Well, okay, but who determines what the injury is? The comp company, they say, oh, it's a strain sprain, and they accept that. Why? Because when you go to MMI, there's no impairment rating for a strain sprain, and it's cheaper for them to cover. And then the worst injuries, they're gonna deny and make you go through these utilization reviews like they're currently putting Jaclyn through. And so, a lot of our members reach out and they're like, hey, I need a lawyer to fight this, right? They're like, you guys give me a lawyer when I got in a shooting, and now I need a lawyer to fight this workers' comp. And I have to break the news to them that we cannot provide them a lawyer, because there is a section in law that says the only way that an injured worker in Texas can have legal is that legal representative has to be paid out of Jaclyn's income benefits. And then it's capped at 25% of that. What lawyer is going to do that?
Yeah.
Right. And so, I got to finding where some lawyers have stepped up to do that, and they've taken money directly from, and I'm seeing where they've been penalized through the Texas Department of Insurance. They're subject to a fine. I saw, I even found where, I almost said the name of the company again, but I even found where an insurance carrier violated that statute and had to pay a $5,000 fine about 6 years ago. So yeah, it's completely a mess, and it goes back to the tort reform days.
Yeah.
And I get, why it's that way and stuff, but it's just a mess.
Yeah.
I want to circle back to something that Jaclyn has said. And I really hope that we have legislators that watch this and hopefully they will ask this simple question to an insurance carrier. I understand if you have a deputy that, was getting something out of the trunk of her car and she falls backwards and breaks her wrist, right? I get where there could be some confusion into, hey, is this injury associated with this, right? So why does a cop that got shot 4 times, why does that cop have to get approval to get a damn MRI?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, hello?
He'd been shot.
Yeah, 4 times, right? I mean, it's just it blows my mind. But that's part of the warfare that these insurance carriers use to try to just get you to go away and then claim, and I don't know how you claim that one. Like with me, I guess I could have said I fell off my roof getting something off of it for my shoulder. But I mean, I don't know how she would claim, well, I accidentally shot myself 4 times, right? I mean, how do you bounce back? It's just crazy. But back to your question about the protections that you have. So if you're civil service, you have that year. Last session or session before, we got that extended to every law enforcement agency in the state of Texas. So now it doesn't matter if you're civil service or not. Outside of that, if you work for an elected official, there's a provision in Article 3 of the Constitution that says that you cannot be terminated because of that injury until that sheriff leaves office. So now, does that mean that sheriff's not going to find a different reason to let you go?
Right.
Right. So, and the longer it takes you to get back to work, the more inclined these
more risk
agencies are going to be willing to take on you, right? So, and that's another aspect that we need the legislature to think about. We need the local policymakers to think about. When we talk about local policymakers, talking about your mayors, we're talking about your county judges and your commissioners and your city councils.
Yeah.
We need all of them to understand that, and get on board with holding these people accountable. Because I promise you, one of these, and I'm going to say they're the worst. They're the absolute worst one out there. I'm not going to say their name because I associate them with the bad guy, and you just don't ever say the bad guy's name, right? But that particular entity, 2 sessions ago, had a really bad reputation in the legislature. Several legislators called them out for lying openly, and if the cities that participate in that, if they would just click, it would just click. Hey, I'm paying this organization to provide workers' comp insurance for my employees, and I need them to get my employee back to work. If they knew all the runaround that these folks were doing, they would probably fire their asses and find another insurance.
They may not, though. You never know.
Well, there was one city, and I've got an article that we're going to be sharing with the legislature, but there's a city in Texas where an officer was killed. It was a car crash situation. The officer was killed. There was a settlement. I think it was like an 18-wheeler or something. But anyway, so the spouse got a lawyer, and they ended up suing the insurance company of the other person.
Okay.
Well, what the spouse didn't know is that the insurance carrier is segregated back, which means now that comp carrier can step in and recover their money back out of that settlement. God. And when they say no, what do? They sue the widow, like they did in this Texas city. But you want to know the shadiest part of it all? They don't sue under their name. They sue under the city's name. So that would be the equivalent, like the town that I live in, Kempner. If that happened to one of our officers and our comp carrier, which is the same damn comp carrier, by the way, I'm trying to figure out how to get away from them. If our city, if that happened there, then it would be not, whatever intergovernmental risk pool.
It would be the city of Kempner versus the widow.
Kempner versus the widow.
Wow.
And that's how, and they hide that in their contract language.
Wow. That's incredible.
Yep.
Well,
that kind of segues into kind of what another thing that we're going to briefly touch on here. But there's a hearing tomorrow, and we've talked about a lot of things. And Bryan, you brought it up earlier. What happens if 86,000 licensees all of a sudden wakes up and realizes I could be the next Jaclyn Skinner? Yeah. And so there's actually an interim hearing going on tomorrow in the House Homeland Security, Public Safety, Veteran Affairs Committee. They keep adding more things to that committee.
Let's see.
But it has to do with studying workforce challenges affecting state and local law enforcement agencies, including recruitment, retention, moral injury, training, and pipeline barriers. And that kind of fits right into this right here. And, we asked Jaclyn to come down and tell her story before this committee.
Oh, okay. She'll be down tomorrow, then.
Absolutely.
Oh, cool.
And so I think that, maybe, and I'm hopeful that maybe some of the light bulbs will start going off.
Yeah.
And on the House side, not really concerned about it because, like I said, the House of Representatives, at least last session, they knew how screwed up workers' comp system was. And so, but we need to show them that they are, they're not getting any better. And I would venture to say they're probably getting a little bit worse.
Yeah, but I not speaking for the Senate, we've got a lot of friends in the Senate. There was some inner politics that were going on during that session that was unfortunate, but it was almost like, that House bill you're referring to just kind of fell victim to some of the typical Capitol politics that just happen, right? Not taking a shot at any senator, not taking a shot at any House rep, but it's just an unfortunate situation that happens at the Capitol that has to deal with politics on killing bills and scratch my back, I'll scratch your situation. So we're hoping to get that done, and by laying the foundation tomorrow ahead of the next session during some of these testimonial situations.
Yeah, so we're going to be working on workers' comp stuff. Another thing that we're going to be briefly talking about tomorrow, if we're talking about challenges that are keeping law enforcement out of the profession or hindering law enforcement coming into profession. Another thing that you have to look at is there's a lot of talk right now about property tax reform.
Yeah.
And if you go back and you look at Senate Bill 2 or 3 from the second special session, this session, it would have limited the ability for local governments to increase their property tax rate more than I want to say it's like 1.5%. Currently, it's 3.5%. If your counties and there's certain stipulations on that, you could go up to 8% on some situations. But nonetheless, the problem that you run into there is property tax is one of the major funding mechanisms of public safety.
Yep.
So, Representative Patterson, again, last session filed an amendment on the bill when it came out of the Senate that would say, hey, you have to take into account public safety. So whatever's needed to fund public safety should not be taken apart in that cap. And so it goes back over to the Senate. The Senate strips that part back out. Luckily for us, neither side wanted to agree. So it just died where it is. And, we all pay property taxes. We get it, right? We get that. And I could go off into a long dissertation about how messed up that system is. But we're going to ask the legislature, hey, keep this in mind when you're setting these rules.
Yeah.
Right? Let's have a carve out for public safety. That way we can start paying our deputies and our police officers more. We can give more benefits to them. Think about it right now. There's a grant out there to set the starting salary of deputies in the state of Texas at $45,000.
But see, I thought the Senate Bill 22 kind of fixed all that, but even that's being perverted and misused and not being enforced the correct way.
All right, but think about it in that money. Think about the counties out there that weren't able to pay their deputies not even $45,000 a year.
Right.
Right. That's how you qualify for getting that money.
And you take that with other parts of Texas, fantastic. They were able to at least get them to $45,000 a year.
Right.
When there's other places in Texas that are $60,000 more than that.
So wait a minute, I can go be a deputy.
And so then you're looking at, okay, why stay here? Well, I can go make another $60,000 over here, right?
So what you're saying is I can make $34,000, get shot, and then my shit's not covered for workers' comp. Like, where do I sign up for that job?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And then you can't work security while you're out.
Yeah, which is a huge. I mean, it's a part of your life.
Which, before we crack off into the next subject, little shout out to all of our members watching this. And Jaclyn, I don't know if you know this, but hopefully you have reached out to the Texas Attorney General's office for crimes victim compensation because you are eligible to receive money from the extra jobs that you can't work because of this. So if you did not know that, make sure you reach out to them. And all of our other members that get hurt on the job that lose money from.
We know some people. We just took care of them.
Yeah.
Yep. And speaking of that, at any point in time, was anybody from your local DA's office, their crime victims people, did they reach out to you that you remember?
Somebody from crime victims has contacted me, but since it's I'll ask you how it works later, but somebody's called me after I got out of the hospital.
Okay.
So we talked about the fact that the pay is low. We talked about the fact that if you get hurt, workers' comp is really going to do you more damage than good. And one of the areas that they're going to do you more damage than good is in the mental health.
Yep.
So, Bryan, you want to talk about what we're looking at on the mental health side?
Yeah, so looking at, we already have some protections now, but to really try to shore up the peer support throughout Texas in their confidentiality in their, I like whenever I give people my contact information of, hey, because a lot of places are, for whatever reason, the list is long. I don't feel comfortable reaching out to a peer that's at my agency, so Like, it's good for me whenever I say, hey, here's my contact information. We never even have to look at each other. You can call, text, email, all that kind of good stuff in there. But really trying to shore that up, because one of the topics in tomorrow's hearing, they brought up the moral injury part in there, which that's a whole section in and of itself on what is moral injury in there. But to really try to shore up the confidentiality protections in there. And like, I've already reached out to certain people that I know that are way smarter than I am on here of, hey, let me know what language you would be comfortable with so we can start having this conversation in there of being able to, because this committee that's in there, they're, for the most part, they're 100% pro law enforcement, right? You would agree, JW?
Yep.
They're 100% pro law enforcement. But it's after that, whenever next session actually starts in there, on how much support do we have going forward in there, where, like, I already know from back the hearings that they had after the Kerrville flood.
Right.
And there's a state legislature that was in that hearing talking about the flood stuff, who brought up the fact of he has a friend, a very close friend or something like that. There was a firefighter and had already been in contact with them and talking to them about all the emotional side of things of what they saw out of there. And that state legislator actually brought up about peer support.
There you go.
That we need a stronger peer support. And I remembered that, and all I got to do is go back and find that date because it's recorded. And if we need it, I'm going to say, if you'll refer to that video right there.
Yep.
So if they try to say that they don't want this, say, well, back on this date you did. In there. But if they're trying to strengthen the law enforcement workforce, well, this is part of it.
That's right.
Right? We're never going to since we're not working anymore, they're never going to make enough money.
Nope.
Right? They're never going to make enough money. But it's said time and time again, I will keep this $45,000 in this part of Texas because I have a really good boss. I have a really good leader in my agency that cares about us, and they genuinely help us. And I'll stay here for 45 versus going somewhere else to make 100,000.
I completely agree with that.
With that chance of having that not so nice boss
right
in there, right? So that's going to be one of the topics.
And Bryan, just to touch a little bit more on that, the problem that we're looking at fixing in there is that little blip in the law that says that it's confidential unless the court or the fact finder. So if it's an internal affairs investigation, that fact finder may be your chief of police, and so it's confidential unless they determine that. And I've got it written down.
Because the wording is like it may. They may.
Okay.
Yeah, they may allow disclosure if they determine that disclosure is more important than protecting the privacy of the officer. So that's a pretty wide road that you can go down to find out, hey, at what point do I say my reputation as a chief administrator and whether or not I'm getting out in front of this in enough time, or, I've got an officer that I dislike and now that officer got involved in a critical incident. They have their peer, and you know what? Maybe the first thing that officer said is, our chief's a freaking dumbass. How come he's not paying for the stuff that they need to pay? And now if that chief finds out that he said that after that highly emotional event, now that officer can be terminated. And so we got to get that loop.
And I think the true intent of that is like what is already taking place in peer support is I can have that conversation with somebody and it's completely confidential unless that person, male or female, says that they are going to go hurt themselves or go hurt somebody else. That's when it's no longer confidential and I start trying to reach out to prevent somebody from getting hurt.
Right.
Outside of that, that's just, it doesn't make sense on how some of this stuff is written in here for the protections of us. If you want us to be healthy physically and mentally, then we need all this in place.
Yeah, law enforcement's not pretty, and it's not easy, right, to kind of work through that. And that's why the beauty behind what you guys do is you're trying to correct that on the legislative front and work with these legislators to get this stuff done. And it sounds like we're just doing that, and Jaclyn's a prime example of that.
Oh, yeah.
We're happy to kind of her join this this fight or the team, right, to get the workers' comp situation rectified and corrected. So
yep.
I think that's part of the reason that we're scared to talk. I mean, we're in general more paranoid individuals anyway, but one of the first times I started talking about mental health, they handed me a paper for PTSD and said, fill this out. I said, and if I do, where does it go? I said, I don't want to fill this out, so that would be great.
Yeah, for our non-law enforcement people out there that don't understand what we're talking about, what Jaclyn's referring to is that, there's a barrier there when sometimes these PTSD events like this take place. The scary part for cops is that we don't want those in our personnel files. And the reason for that is because it could be discoverable for defense and really affect cases that we care about because we go out and do the job of law enforcement that could taint our ability to testify for these events that were for the arresting aspects or during court proceedings. And so to her point, we shouldn't have to live like that. We shouldn't have to live in fear that these, PTSD moments or peer support moments or outreach moments should not affect our personnel file and be accessible to defense attorneys. And so to her point, I want to kind of bring that up for our non-law enforcement.
And part of the PTSD is trying to get people to recognize this is not a disorder. It's
right.
If you're going to say it, say either post-traumatic stress or post-traumatic stress injury. If we're injured, we have the chance to be healed.
Right. Yeah.
Yep. And
if they don't,
unless you're covered by comp, then maybe it's a 50-50 shot.
And that's part of the talk for the support stuff in the mental health side of things is the workers' comp.
Yep.
Part of that.
Yep.
Now, I cannot. So when our members call in, if it's a complicated one, field reps will ask me to reach out to the members, and I think just about every member that I've talked to that's been dealing with comp, and I've talked to a lot, each and every one of them have had two solid commonalities. It's what you touched on earlier, T.O., is they just want to get back to work.
Yeah.
Right. And then the second one is a lot of them had talked about because of what they're having to go through with comp, they feel like they have developed PTS because of the comp.
Yeah,
right?
That's an accurate statement.
And then so now let's take it a step further and kind of how this twines into the next one. The form that Jaclyn had to fill out, or that they asked her to fill out so she could get the claim started. Okay, so now the chief of the department or the sheriff, and Jaclyn, I'm not saying this to scare you. You have to remember we deal with over 2,800 law enforcement agencies in the state of Texas, and some of them are pretty shady.
And each one does things completely different.
Well, I didn't fill it out.
No, I wouldn't have either.
So, but a lot of the administrators are shady. We deal with it a lot, and so now you have a chief of police that doesn't like Jaclyn, and says, "Oh, Jaclyn has a claim for PTSD." Well, here you go, Jaclyn, since you filled that out, and now you're subject to a fit for duty evaluation.
Uh-huh.
And now you go to a psychologist, and the psychologist says, well, I can't sign off on you if you've been diagnosed with PTS. And so now you're in this vicious cycle. Now now your peace officer license is temporarily gone, and now you're fighting this aspect of it. But then now let's say that Jaclyn does go and fills out that paper and goes through treatment. Talks to folks, and everything's good to go. Well, what happens if she comes to work in, say, a county like Travis County, where you have a DA that's going to use that to put her on a Brady list?
Sure.
Right. And so, that walks us into our next issue of, with Brady lists, Brady Giglio, non-disclosure, whatever the case it is, whatever the prosecutors want to call it. We've seen where that list has either been misused unintentionally, misused intentionally, or weaponized against law enforcement. And so we've got to get back to some common sense on that. And so that's another thing that we're going to be talking about is if you want to keep workforce in law enforcement, you want to keep folks in, then let's have an actual standard for putting somebody on this list, and then have some kind of route to get them out of that list as well.
Yeah, I agree. And you guys are continue to put up the good fight there at the Capitol, and we're hoping we can get these workers' comp issues corrected. I mean, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but sometimes you look back and you're like, how is this not common sense applicability for these legislators? And it's just one of the things we got to fight. So I like your point about her kind of taking it full circle, of her kind of, unfortunately, being a part of every kind of service that TMPA offers, with the legal aspect, the peer support aspect, the member services aspect, and then the charity side of it. I think it's important.
And now political.
Well, and now political. And so, the unique part about it is to your point earlier, you were just kind of overwhelmed with the amount of service that some of the field reps and employees at TMPA have. The cool thing is that 20 years from now, when we're sitting in the conference, we're a family from that point forward. And so you get to kind of see the inner workings of how TMPA works. And so it's unfortunate that this situation happened to you, but it's going to be cool to sit there after we get good legislation passed for workers' comp and you to be a part of it. That's going to be the rewarding aspect of it. I can't thank you again enough for coming down, not only to testify before the House in these committees, but also to tell your story. It takes a lot of courage and takes a lot of interpersonal things to push that out there and put your stuff out there on this podcast. So on behalf of TMPA and Blue Grit, man, we can't thank you enough.
Thank y'all for everything, because it's not just, this job is probably one of the most selfish jobs you can do. Our family don't sign up for it. So every communication we've had and all the support y'all have given us, the bed, kids at home at an 8-year-old saying, are you going to be able to sleep in your room?
Yep.
These are the same kids that they look at you and say, I'm glad you didn't go to heaven. It doesn't just affect me, it affects our family.
For sure. For sure.
I really appreciate all y'all's support.
Yep.
If there's anything I can do to help so this doesn't happen to other officers, or to help the future, I'm here to help.
Yep. Bryan, J-Dub, you got anything else? We're going to head with the rapid fire questions here in a minute.
Yeah, I want to touch on a few more things. We're not going to, completely describe them, but we're looking at a similar HALO law like you have in Florida. Then also what we're seeing more and more of is violent suspects are not simply only taking or attempting to take the weapon from a peace officer, but they're trying to steal our cars and steal our radios. So we're looking at revamping that statute to get some more strength in there.
Good.
And then also fixing that loophole that they love to use in the peace officer transfer bill.
Oh yeah.
So we'll be talking on all that tomorrow and moving that part of our legislation. And a lot of people ask me, where do you get this from? Well, we get it from our members like Jaclyn, who's going through this, along with all the other members that have been going through workers' comp. We get, maybe our board members will say, hey, I was attending this conference and, somebody mentioned that they have this law and maybe we need to get it there. But all of our legislative directives come from our board of directors, which in essence comes from our members.
Yep.
So,
and if you want to be a part of that, reach out to us at info@tmpa.org. We can put you in the right contact with the right person on the legislative agenda. And just like to J-Dub's point and Bryan's point is that we get these quote unquote ideas for these bills from you guys, from the members of TMPA and members of law enforcement. You don't have, let me say this too. The difference between us and other organizations, you don't have to be a TMPA member for us to listen or to assist you in your legislative affairs or your legislative ideas. We will happily assist if it makes sense, if it's good laws that make law enforcement better. Man, we're here to help. And your affiliation with us is not a part of that conversation. So again, reach out to us at info@tmpa.org. We'll kind of shoot the email over to these guys and let the team get to work on it. So,
and like last week, whenever I was up in the Panhandle teaching, I brought up the fact that we're going to be having this hearing tomorrow, and asked them anything that you feel like from your perspective on the agencies that are represented here in this class this week. Send me the idea, and if I get the opportunity, I'll present that either at the hearing or sometime during next session to let them know, hey, you're not forgotten.
Right.
You're part of the 2,800 law enforcement agencies, and I got an email this morning.
There you go.
It's about a page and a half.
Yeah.
Hey, you asked, and here it is.
Here it is. Yeah, you asked, you shall receive.
Yeah, and so that's part of it. And they're a member, and I said I'll do everything I can to get your idea out there.
There you go.
So,
well, this wraps up the podcast. Hey, have you seen any podcasts prior to you coming on? Are you aware of the rapid fire questions? We don't want to spoil it if you have not. No.
I didn't watch the rapid fire.
All right.
okay.
We're going to ask you 3 rapid fire questions. You ready? I hope you studied. First, what is your favorite cop movie or line from a cop movie? What's your favorite drink of choice when you're hanging out off duty? And what's your favorite cop car? Favorite line from a cop movie or favorite cop movie is number 1.
Does it have to be a movie?
No, it can be a show.
Let's watch Smokey and the Bandit.
So that's a good one. Yeah.
And then favorite drink,
Favorite drink of choice?
gin and tonic.
Gin and tonic. That's a unique one. I have not heard. That's not been a fan favorite.
think it is.
Yeah, I'll have to try that out. I'll have to try that at Hays City tonight. What's your favorite cop car?
I really like the Crown Vic and Academy.
Yes. There you go. Crown Vic it is. The best
We
all-time police.
lit the brakes on fire twice.
I don't doubt that. I don't doubt
We,
that for sure.
we had a lot of fun with it.
Crown Vic is the number one answer for sure. Anyway,
Every once in a while, you have somebody that'll claim the Caprice.
the Caprice, the Impala, the Tahoes are nice for the size, but it cannot beat the Warhorse, the Crown Victoria. So
Absolutely.
as was our probably common issued vehicles when we were policing. But anyway, hey, again, TMPA Texas FOP Joint Conference, July 24th through the 26th, Dallas Hyatt Regency. Hope to see you there, Jaclyn. It's right down the road from you. It's maybe an hour and a half drive. You can come hang out with the TMPA guys and gals and work on some legislative.
You get TCO credit.
You get 8 hours of TCO credit. First time in several years, we're going to give 8 hours of TCO credit out for the TMPA Texas FOP Conference. Real quick shout out to the Ruby sponsors. I want to talk about this. Home Wealth Management, AT&T FirstNet, and East Coast Amusement. Thank y'all so much for your Ruby level sponsorships for this conference this year. We look forward to hanging out with you guys, your teams, and for your teams to get to associate and hang out with our members there at our conference. Again, this is a family event. There'll be spousal events on Saturday, spousal events on Sunday. We're going to change it up a little bit this year. By the way, we got cop karaoke going on Friday night. So if you're interested, you or your association can enter to be the cop karaoke winner. So $50 entry fee. It'll go to TMPA charities. And we'll look forward to seeing you guys there. Plus, we got the purse bingo on Saturday, and I think we have another spousal event going on Sunday. Again, it's a very good networking opportunity. If you've never been, I strongly, strongly encourage you to go. You'll get to hang out with all of us and network with other law enforcement professionals across the state. Again, tmpa.org. Register now for the Texas FOP and TMPA Conference, July 24th through the 26th. J-Dub, appreciate you stopping by. Bryan, appreciate you guys carving out some time in y'all's busy schedule to stop by the podcast. And absolutely, it's always a pleasure, man. It's always a pleasure. Well, hey, this wraps it up. You guys take care. Stay safe. God bless you. And as always, may God bless Texas. We're out.